Hi, this is Jacob's Algebra, Chapter 9, Lesson 7. So this lesson is about dividing polynomials, and we use two different methods for dividing polynomials in this lesson. So the first one looks just like long division. So the problem I'm going to write out is x plus 5 divided into x cubed plus 2x squared minus 8x plus 35. And so we look at this very much like the way that we do long division with numbers. So we're going to take our x and we're going to see how many times can that go into x cubed, or basically what do we have to multiply x by to get x cubed? Well, x times x squared will give us x cubed. So now what we have to do is take this x squared and multiply it by our whole expression out here. X squared times x is x cubed. X squared times 5 is 5x squared. Now, what you do in regular long division is that then you subtract this second line from the line above it. Well, because we have more than one term here, what I recommend is that you flip all your signs and then add, because that way it makes sure that you remember to subtract every term and not just subtract the first term. So x cubed minus x cubed is 0. And then 2x squared plus a negative 5x squared, it's the same as 2x squared minus 5x squared, is negative 3x squared. Now we have two terms over here. That means we need to pull down one more term. And now we look and see how many times can x go into negative 3x squared, or what do we have to multiply by x to get negative 3x squared? Well, we would have to multiply it by negative 3x. And so negative 3x times x will give us negative 3x squared. And then negative 3x times 5 will give us negative 15x. Again, we draw our line, and now we need to flip our signs. Okay, so negative 3x squared plus 3x squared, that's 0. And then negative 8x plus 15x, that gives us 7x. We need to bring down our next term, which is 35. X times what is 7x? Well, that's got to be 7, because 7 times x is 7x. And then we've got to multiply our 7 by the 5 as well, and that gives us 35. So we draw our line, we flip our signs. 7x minus 7x is 0. 35 minus 35 is 0. That means we're done. How many times can x plus 5 go into x cubed plus 2x squared minus 8x plus 35? Well, the answer is going to be x squared minus 3x plus 7. Or you could say it as x plus 5 times x squared minus 3x plus 7 is going to give us this long answer here. Now, the other way we can work this out is by using our box method. So let me show how the box method works for a problem like this. So we need a long box thingy here, and then we're going to draw a grid line across here. Okay, so what we're doing is we are dividing x plus 5, and what we need to end up with in these boxes needs to add up to x cubed plus 2x squared minus 8x plus 35. Well, that first term is x cubed. So what do we have to multiply? That's not a very straight line. What do we have to multiply by x to get x cubed? Well, that's got to be x squared. Well, then we have to multiply that by our 5 also. So that's going to be 5x squared. But our x squared term is 2x squared. So that means that we have to have a negative 3x squared up here so that we will add up to 2x squared. Let me draw my line here. That's a much better one. Okay, so what do we have to multiply by x to get negative 3x squared? Well, that would be negative 3x. And then negative 3x times 5 is negative 15x. But our x term is supposed to be negative 8x. That means our other x term has to be a positive 7x, because negative 15x plus 7x will add to negative 8x. So let me draw my little grid line here. What do we have to multiply by x to get 7x? Well, that has to be 7. and then 7 times 5 is 35, and you can see we end up with what we have down here. Here's our x cubed term, and then 5x squared minus 3x squared will give us 2x squared. Negative 15x plus 7x, that will give us our negative 8x. And then we have our 35 here. So we get x squared minus 3x, and this is going to be a plus 7 because if there's no sign there, it's understood to be positive. And I'll flip back to our previous page so that you can see we got the same answer, which is good because we ought to get the same answer. Okay, so that's how to work this same kind of problem with our diagram method. So let's look at our first example. The first example, I'm going to look at number 3, part C. And this shows us a grid that's partially filled in. So here's our grid, and these are the grid lines that we have. It's cut in half this way, and then it's cut into thirds the other direction. And the numbers that they give us are 3x squared, 7x, and negative 2 at the top. Sorry, that's supposed to be an x. And then inside we have 18x cubed and an 8. And we need to figure out what are the rest of the numbers here. Well, this 18x cubed has to be 3x squared times whatever number goes over here. So we would have to multiply 6x by 3x squared to get 18x squared. Well, now that we know this is 6x, we can fill in the rest of the numbers in the row. 6x times 7x, that is 42x. 6x times negative 2, that is negative 12x. And then what goes on the bottom down here? Well, we have an 8 in this box, and we have a negative 2 above. So what do we have to multiply by negative 2 to get 8? Well, that's got to be negative 4 because negative 4 times negative 2 is 8. So now we can fill in our remaining two boxes. Negative 4 times 3x squared is negative 12x squared. And negative 4 times 7x is negative 28x. So this is number 3C. It is just like number 10 that I assigned for homework. You'll be given a grid diagram that has some of the numbers filled in. You need to figure out what the missing numbers are. So now let's look at number 4, part C. Number 4, part C says, look at your diagram for exercise 3 to find the answer to the problem. This means you don't have to actually work this one out. Let's take a look at it. The problem is 18x cubed plus 30x squared minus 40x plus 8 divided by 3x squared plus 7x minus 2. Notice what we're dividing by is what we were given at the top here on our equation for 3C. And what we're dividing it into, which is the top part here, well, there's 18x cubed, that's what we have in this box. 30x squared, well, 42x minus 42x squared, times negative 12x squared is 30x squared. And then we have a negative 40x. Well, negative 28x plus a negative 12x is going to be negative 40x. And then we have an 8, and there's our 8. So this is really just asking, what do we get if we started off with this, which is what we have inside of our diagram here, and we divide it by this expression, which is the one that's up on the top, what is our answer? Well, our answer has to be this part over here, which is 6x minus 4. Sorry, let me make that look more like a 6 and less like a b. That looks even worse. 6x minus 4. It still looks like a b. Oh, well. So number 4 is just like number 11 in the homework. For number 4, you do not have to work out the long division. It tells you to go back and look at the previous problem, same part on the previous problem, and find what the answer is. It doesn't say to work it out all over again. Okay, so let's move on to number 5. Number 5 is just like number 12 in your homework. And it says find the quotient by drawing a diagram like those in exercise 3. So it gives you a problem like this: 4x cubed minus 3x squared minus 23x plus 9. And this is being divided by 4x plus 9. Now it said to draw a box diagram, so we're going to go ahead and draw a box diagram. I'm not sure how big to make this, so I'm going to make it fairly big. Okay, and I'm just drawing my line through the middle because I know what I'm dividing into this is 4x plus 9. So I only have two terms on the bottom here. So this is what I'm dividing into it. Now in this first box, I know I need this 4x cubed. So there's my 4x cubed. Let me draw my first divider bar. So the first question we need to say is, what do we have to multiply by 4x to get 4x cubed? Well, that has to be x squared, because x squared times 4x is 4x cubed. So then what would go down in this bottom box? Well, that's x squared times 9, and that is 9x squared. Well, we can see our second term here is negative 3x squared. So how are we going to change this from 9x squared to negative 3x squared? That means we've got to take away 12x squared. So we've got to have a negative 12x squared. So let me put a divider bar here. Okay, now how do we get a negative 12x squared? 4x times what is negative 12x squared? Well, to get the negative 12, we have to multiply by a negative 3, because 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. And to get the x squared, we have to multiply by x, because x times x is x squared. Now we can see what goes in this bottom box. Negative 3x times 9 is negative 27x. Well, we can see right up here that our next term is actually negative 23x. We have negative 27x, so that means we need to add 4x to end up with negative 23x. Well, what do we have to multiply by 4x to end up with 4x? Well, that's just 1. And then 1 times 9 is 9. So you can see we have our 4x cubed for our first term. Here in the middle, we have 9x squared minus 12x squared to get negative 3x squared. Then we have negative 27x plus 4x to get negative 23x. And then we have our 9 to get our 9 at the end. So for number 5, find the quotient by drawing a diagram. Well, the quotient is going to be this part up here. So you need to make sure that after you've done this that you actually write out the answer. The answer is x squared, minus 3x plus 1. That is our quotient. When we divide this out, x squared minus 3x plus 1 is our answer. So this is number 5, part B, and that is just like number 12. So now for number 6, it says find the following quotients without using a diagram, then compare your work with the diagrams you drew for exercise 5. What this means is the next problem is going to have you working the exact same problem, but this time you do need to work it out in long division form. They want you to show that you get the same answer. So I'm going to do number 6, part B, which is the same problem. We're going to be dividing by 4x plus 9, and we're going to divide that into 4x cubed minus 3x squared, where is it? Minus 23, 23x, and then plus 9. So you can see if I flip this back here that this is the same problem. 4x cubed minus 3x squared minus 23x plus 9. And then here we are again with that exact same problem. This time though, we're going to work it out the long division way. What do we have to multiply by 4x to get 4x cubed? Well, that's got to be just x squared. And then we multiply the x squared times 4x plus 9 to get 4x cubed plus 9x squared. Then we need to flip our signs and add. 4x cubed minus 4x cubed is 0. Negative 3x squared plus negative 9x squared is a negative 12x squared. And we bring down our next term. And I'm going to stop here because it's about to cut off, and we will finish this problem in part 2.